Hello everybody, day 24 of shelter. I hope you guys have had a super blessed Sunday. We certainly have had. The weather is turning at the moment. We've had a lot of termites come out this afternoon, scurrying madly, doing what they do, and it's normally a sign for us that the weather is about to change. So we'll see what comes of that. We got some great exercise, 10-kilometer walk in the mountains this morning. It was just beautiful. So we have grateful hearts this evening. So just to check in with you, as we've said yesterday, we will continue with boundaries today. And I thought, we've looked at being in the drama triangle, what keeps us out of that in terms of keeping healthy relationships. We've looked at the need to make sure that we're checking in with our emotions to be able to give us a guide as to the yeses and nos around whether we say yes to things and no to things around responsibilities and roles, etc. So today I thought to really just narrow it down and make it really practical. So what are boundaries? What do they do for us? Why would we even want to have them, seen as though it costs us so much emotion to be able to say no so often? So boundaries really define us. They define who we are and who we're not. And you've probably heard me say in previous podcasts that once you know who you are and you know what you stand for, what's okay, what's not okay, what your values are, it starts to allow your boundaries to be that much easier. It's what I will accept, what I won't accept, where my limits are, where I draw the line, what is okay, what's not okay. And this extends to everything in your life. Every single role and relationship that you have needs good, healthy boundaries. And, people often say it's the rules by which I live my life. I love the word boundaries rather than rules. Rules feels a little bit constricting to me. And boundaries is me keeping me safe. And to a large extent, others. So there's a healthy aspect to it. And I think what is so beautiful about boundaries is that it gives one so much freedom. When you know what you're responsible and what you're not responsible, it makes it so easy to be able to call those things and to say, I'll do this, you guys do that. And or whatever that might be in context for you. But there really is an enormous amount of freedom that comes from that. It defines responsibility. It defines what's not my responsibility. And remember, like we said in the drama triangle, very often we dive in terms of rescuing situations that are actually not ours to rescue. We dive in and we roll pumpkins out of people's paths, but nobody really learns from that. So what is my responsibility and what is not my responsibility? We've already said it keeps the good in, the bad out. Defines what I must do and what others need to be doing. So it's really a very powerful place to be when you can put really good, healthy boundaries in place. So, and remember, boundaries could be around things with yourself. You know, how many drinks I have a night. Boundaries as to what your limits are in certain areas, even to the extent of, how many drinks you will have in an evening or over a weekend or whatever that might be. It's your limit with yourself. And remember, the more you love and care for yourself, the more healthy boundaries you'll have in place. So what falls within your boundaries? What are you actually responsible for? The first one is your feelings. So often we think that others are responsible for the way that we feel because they do things to us that make us feel out of sorts or uncomfortable or negative or whatever. But that is still your responsibility to lean in, have good, healthy conversations and be able to shift whatever's happening in those relationships. So feelings, your responsibility, and it's your responsibility to navigate a feeling and transform it into a healthy place. You're also responsible for your attitudes and your behavior. And you're also responsible for your beliefs. So that could be your way of thinking. We're now not talking religious beliefs, we're talking a way of thinking. So it could be negative attitudes towards things. sabotage ways of thinking, taking things personally. That's your responsibility. So often people will say to me, yeah, but I was really offended. You know that offense is actually taken, not given. And that's something to think about often just in terms of our own beliefs and attitudes. So we're also responsible for the choices that we make. Our values. We need to know what our values are. And boy, oh boy, values was probably the most fundamental thing that I ever did. I mean, we have so much value on so many levels, but we need to know what they are, because it really starts to become the compass that actually guides our world in terms of what we say yes and no to. And even with regard to destiny and purpose and how we get there. You know, so often we say yes to so many things, and it's like a leaf that gets tossed by every wind, and we say yes, and eventually we find ourselves right on the opposite side of where we actually want to be in terms of our own purpose. And that's often because we're not saying no in the right places. And if you know what your values and you know what your purpose and destiny is, it starts to narrow that down quite considerably for you. So values is a very helpful exercise. Limits. We've mentioned limits already in terms of you knowing what is okay and what's not okay. Your talents and your dreams. Nobody else is going to allow your dreams and talents to come to fruition. You've got to make those things in your life happen. So tap into yourself. Stop listening to the external voices of what you should be doing in your own life, and gain some motivation from that, intrinsic motivation in terms of what is it that I want? What makes my world, my life come alive? And start to put healthy boundaries in place so that you've got time in your day to actually make those things a reality for yourself. And then your thoughts. You are responsible for what's happening in your headspace, and then also your dreams and desires, as I've said. So if we think about what are the reasons that boundaries break down, because if you're not in a position where you are actually upholding your own boundaries, you will find that they will fall by the wayside very, very quickly. So before you determine to put a boundary in place, make sure that you're in the right place to actually follow it through, because inconsistency around boundaries is a sure way to have them fall by the wayside. So reasons that allow boundaries to break down is a lack of respect for yourself and for others. No consequences for behavior, actions, whatever that might be. A lack of self-management, where you are not managing yourself in terms of your own follow-through. No one is prepared to enforce them. We often find this in family situations. With kids, there's boundaries. This is the time that you do homework. This is the time we bath. This is the time we go to bed, whatever those things are. And maybe you're busy and wrapped up in a movie or having a fun time with friends. And all of a sudden, those boundaries fall by the wayside because tonight it doesn't work. Your kids don't actually understand that. They want structure and they want the boundaries to feel healthy and safe and all of those wonderful things. So unreasonable expectations and pressure. Boundaries are not seen as important by the other people or yourself. And then, of course, fear. Fear is often a big one to kick us outside of what might come from me putting a healthy boundary in place, and the consequences that might come from that with people in our lives. And then, of course, transactional analysis, which is the way that we put these boundaries in place, the way that we communicate with others, and making sure that that we're assertive around our boundaries and not getting into passive-aggressive or manipulative type communication, because that's, of course, just taking us straight back into the manipulation and control that we're trying to move away from. So I hope that gives you something to think about. I know it was quite a mouthful, but very often we wonder why things fail around boundaries, and of course just understanding the importance of it. So I hope that has got you thinking around whatever's happening for you in your own household with your loved ones, and where your biggest frustrations are lying, because that is a good indicator of something that's not working for you, and perhaps it's an opportunity to put a lovely healthy boundary in place to start to circumvent that for the future. So yeah, have an incredibly blessed Sunday Eve, and I'll check in with you tomorrow.